Good morning. Hey, we're not that far into the new year. It's something I mentioned this past Sunday when I was preaching, and that is that I looked down on New Year's Eve at this book, and it is my 2026 planner, and I hadn't written anything in it, which is pretty weird because normally I would go ahead and do some things. And I mentioned the idea of a tabula rasa, which is a blank slate. You have a year ahead of you. I want to focus on words because every word you're going to speak this year, and it's going to be plenty of them, you have a choice, okay? And I want to share something I picked up from Bob Goff, who writes from Proverbs 21:23, those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. Ain't that the truth, right? I mean, how many times it's like, oh, I didn't mean, whoa, why did I say that? Oh, could I take that back? It sounded good in my head, but not outside of my head. Bob Goff said he received a call from a woman who had read one of his books that a friend had given. He said she was very polite and soft-spoken, and I told her I was honored that she'd taken the time to call. Bob Goff puts his phone number in the back of all of his books. It's his cell phone number, and yes, I did chat with him one time, and he happened to be in Africa, and it cost him a lot of money for the call. But that's for another day. She said the reason that her friend had given her the book was that she was going in for brain surgery soon. So I can just imagine if I was Bob, all of a sudden it's like, wow, like this, that's serious stuff. And because of where the tumor was, what she was aware of was that after the surgery, she was confident she was going to come through it okay, but she would lose the ability to speak. Just let that sink in for a moment. Well, that changed the conversation. Bob was sad, and he said, I don't mean to pry, but can I ask you, what are you talking to your friends about, given that you only have a short time to speak? And he was kind of surprised. What she said was, instead of just, well, I just blurt out everything, she said, I'm being really picky about what I say. Think about that for a moment. If you knew you just had a limited amount of time, would you just want to get volume out there? Now, I understand volume. I can talk with the best of them. You give me an hour to speak, I'll speak for an hour. I can do it, okay? And that Bob identifies with that. He said, some days you just can't shut me up. But she, on the other hand, who had only a few days to speak, was really picky about what came out of her mouth, which reminds me about what the Apostle Paul wrote to the church at Ephesus in chapter 4, verse 29. And I think it's interesting because a lot of times people will say that, oh, certain words aren't bad or whatever. I remember we had some teenagers that were dropping F-bombs on each other, not around me. And then one of the other leaders told me, I was so tempted to go, and they just said, well, the Bible doesn't say you can't say that. I guess would have loved to have, but I didn't do it. Drop a couple F-bombs on them just to see the response that we would get. Because it says here, don't use foul or abusive language. And here's the really challenging part. We'd be probably all a little bit more quiet if we took this to heart. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Can you imagine if you use that as the filter? Everything I say needs to be useful and encouraging to the people that hear it. Well, before Bob hung up the phone, he asked when she was going to have the surgery. And so he set a time to connect with her, because she wasn't going to be able to call him if it went as they intended. And he was in the back seat of an Uber in Houston. He remembers right where he was when he dialed her number and rang a few times, and eventually she answered. And indeed, she had lost the ability to speak. And he said, so we delighted together in silence. And he just admonishes us, be picky with your words. I love this. The stupid shelf is always at waist level and loaded with nonsense. Reach up a little higher in your pantry of words and find kinder ones, more thoughtful ones, and important ones, more lasting ones. In 2026, use great words and bless people. Have a great day.